My husband left me passed out on the floor while sick and then got mad at me the next morning. He is probably cheating. We've been married for a few years and have a baby. We had relationship issues after the baby, but I thought we had resolved them and he promised he would be better and all that. He did get better, he did his share around the house and house chores aren't a big issue because he just does what needs to be done without complaint or comment, but something at the back of my head felt off. I never really explored the nagging feeling, but now I realize that he never showed me any extra care. In fact, he gets upset or easily frustrated with me if I cause any extra inconvenience. Not sure how I didn't notice until now. So 2 days ago, I think I got sick. I was feeling the gross thick skin feeling and vertigo? Lightheaded? And by night time I was shivering and freezing. I was still able to function, so I didn't think much of it. Complained to my husband about it and then we went to sleep. Yesterday, I woke up feeling like my bones were lead. How I functioned yesterday, but it felt like autopilot. My boss messaged me with some tasks, so I did them on my phone before my baby woke up. Rolled out of bed and somehow took my sister to school. Came back and worked some more. Usually I have energy to flip between being a mom and working, but yesterday I just laid on the floor to work while my 1-year-old watched some M's. Rachel. Then had to pick up my sister from school, come home to make dinner, and by the time my husband came home, I felt dead on my feet. Anytime I moved, it felt like I was lagging and my body couldn't keep up. I told my husband this a few times. We ate, I put away the leftovers and put the baby to sleep while my husband went to his office to do some quick work. After this, I don't really remember because my brain was foggy. I found myself in his office, we exchanged a few words but I don't remember what, and next thing I knew, I woke up alone in his office on the floor. I felt so heavy and out of it. It took so much effort to get up, but when I got out, all the lights were off, the kitchen was not touched and he was in bed. I just stood in the kitchen and realized that he just doesn't care. I already knew he wasn't going to clean the kitchen tomorrow, and that he didn't care. I felt off. I had a busy day planned and I didn't have time to wash all the dishes the next day. So I loaded the dishwasher and then went to bed. I laid down and 5 minutes later, my husband, very angrily, told me to turn off the lights in the kitchen. At this point I had no energy to deal with him, so I ignored him and fell asleep. The next morning, today, I woke up covered in sweat, but that gross feeling was gone. That's when I realized that I was sick. My husband was upset with me. He wouldn't talk or look at me and was stomping around. I tried to ask him about yesterday, but he just grumbled something about me confusing him. Everything from yesterday caught up and I just can't see him the same. I realized that he has never taken care of me, or done anything that was inconvenient for him. I've been sick before and every time it's the same thing. He gets upset at me somehow. After I had a baby, he was upset that nothing was kept up around the house, yet got angry with me when I fainted from overexertion at 2 weeks postpartum. I remember him yelling at me that I did this to myself and it's my fault for not taking care of myself, even though just 2 days before, he was telling me that he was angry with me for not keeping up with laundry and that I needed to clean the kitchen because it was starting to smell and he didn't want to cook anymore. Don't even get me started on how he never woke up at night. All these memories hit me and I just am disgusted by him. How did I not see this? What do I even do? I'm going to stop here before the post gets too long. Update 1. Hi, so I'm still alive. I've had a surprising amount of people message me a week or two ago, and it's very kind of you people to care. I'll go right into what happened. I went to the hospital that day, since a shocking percentage of people suspected he could have messed with something, but no. The doctor said nothing came up, but he did say I had high blood pressure and recommended me to a cardiologist. I still have a month left before the appointment. When my husband got home from work, he was acting like everything was normal. I wanted to see if he would inquire at all about my faint the night prior, but nothing. So after the baby was settled for the night, I asked him why I woke up alone in his office. He got instantly angry with me and seemed annoyed I even brought it up. He said that I was acting confusing, and what was he supposed to do? I should have told him what I wanted him to do. I told him about my visit to the hospital and he said that going to the hospital is a little much. I told him the doctor said I am showing signs of heart issues, likely caused by stress. He blew up on me, yelling that I'm causing my own early grave and that it's my fault for not taking care of myself. With that, he closed himself in the room, leaving me to clean up after dinner alone again. Except I decided that I wouldn't, so I went on the couch and watched a movie. He came out, suddenly friendly and flirty. He tried to lay with me and ask what I was doing. He kept trying to act cute, and when I wasn't showing much response to it, he got angry and stormed off, locking me out of the bedroom. The next morning, I woke up to him slamming around the kitchen and cussing about how I couldn't even properly clean the kitchen. I just went to the bedroom and went back to sleep, if you can call it that, because he kept doing things to keep me awake. He complained later that day about how he was so hungry because I didn't make him breakfast or lunch. I gave myself a break day. I didn't work, didn't focus on the house, I was just a mom and spent time with our baby. I went to the park, to the library, to my in-laws. I tried to talk to her about the heart thing, and she responded with poor husband's name, he's probably going to stress about this. That's when I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I got pizza for dinner and got home right after my husband. He was not happy and it was different this time. I tried to ignore his obvious tension. He cleaned the kitchen very loudly and was muttering under his breath. I washed up our daughter and put her to bed, trying not to feel anxious. When I came out, he started talking very aggressively about how I've been letting myself get lazy and he won't take my lack of effort. A relationship is a two-way street, he said. I started yelling back about how I cook, clean, manage his child and work at the same time, so how is it that I'm the one that's lazy when he keeps expecting me to do more things too? Things escalated and he started throwing dishes at me. When he ran out of things to throw, he strangled me. Then he left the house and I called the police. My baby was woken up, the neighbors were there because they heard yelling and glass breaking. It was chaos. When he came back, he tried to say I did everything. Even the bruises around my neck were self-inflicted apparently. I'm still trying to process everything, it all happened so fast. Sometime I wonder what would have happened if I had just sucked it up and didn't rebel. Would our relationship be fine? I have my first therapy session scheduled for next Tuesday, so I guess I'll talk all about it then. My husband is at his mom's now. I'm at my grandmother's for now and have almost all my stuff out of our apartment. We have a temporary restraining order, official hearing is tomorrow morning. I'm scared if I'm honest. I haven't seen him since that night. My daughter keeps asking me where dad is and I don't know what to tell her. There's my update. I feel so numb to it all. I can probably type much more that happened, but it already feels so long. Plus, I don't want to cry again. Edit, I reread this all and I sound like a big whiny baby, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I promise I don't sound like this in person. I also wanted to add a thought. I don't know if I would have called the police and all if I hadn't posted before. I honestly don't know. This is the most scariest thing he's done to me, but he's done plenty of other things before. When I originally posted, it was more of a vent post. All your caring, kind thoughts moved me. It gave me the little push I needed. I only have my little sister and my grandmother. I can't tell my grandmother any of these details because she's too frail and sensitive. My dad was an alcoholic and died while driving under the influence. My mom left us after that for a guy in Russia. I don't know how she's doing, but she used to treat us very poorly, so I don't really care. Point is, thank you all. The responses here are too kind and I don't even know what to say. Update 2, I don't even know where to start, so I'll just go in order and hope my brain doesn't short circuit halfway. The hearing was not what I pictured. I thought it would be me, him, a judge, in and out. It felt like a movie, except it was my neck in the photos and my hands were shaking so bad I kept wiping my palms on my skirt. He came in with his mom and a lawyer who looked bored. My grandma held my daughter in the hallway so she wouldn't hear. He wouldn't look at me. The judge did though. He looked right at the pictures, at the police report, at my ER paperwork and then at me. When I said he strangled me out loud, my voice did that ugly crack and I hated it. His lawyer tried to say I bruise easy and I escalate. The judge cut him off. He granted a year, full stay away, no contact, temporary custody to me, supervised visits only if a parenting center could fit him in. He had to surrender his firearms. I didn't even know he had one. I felt my whole body shake like a sugar crash. His mom sighed loud and glared at me like I'd stolen something. He didn't say a word. He just stared at the floor. I thought that would be the worst part of the day, but it turns out my husband is apparently part raccoon. On the drive back, my phone kept pinging a weird sound, like a random chime, and I dismissed it because my sister texted me about homework. When I parked, it pinged again. It was my items app telling me there was an unknown AirTag moving with me. My stomach went cold. I tore up the top of the diaper bag, nothing, and then something told me to check under. There was tape stuck inside the lining, like that gummy clear kind you use on posters. A white disc was tucked behind the side seam. I had to pry it out with my nails. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped it and it rolled under the passenger seat, and I just sat there and laughed for a second like an insane person because of course he did that. Of course. I went straight from the car to the police station with my baby on my hip and the thing in a Ziploc bag. The officer wrote it all down and said it would be added as a violation. I went home and changed every password I remembered, then remembered 5 more and changed those too. I looked and he was still signed into my iCloud. He could see my location from his iPad this whole time. I signed him out of everything and turned off that little share my location toggle, and I swear I could breathe for the first time all day. I saw my therapist 2 days later. She is this tiny woman with soft hair and the calmest voice, and I sat there and word vomited for 40 minutes, and then she said the word strangulation like it was a clinical thing and my whole body snapped cold again. She told me there's data about it, how it's serious and it means you're not crazy for being scared. I didn't know I needed someone to say that. She had me do this thing where I put my hand on my chest and the other on my stomach, and I thought it was going to be stupid, but my heart slowed down after a while and I didn't cry. I'm going again next week. I also ended up in the cardiologist earlier than scheduled because my heart decided to run a marathon while I was standing still in the kitchen making oatmeal. My vision went fuzzy like a TV that lost the channel. My grandma held me like I was a kid, which made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. The urgent cardiology clinic slapped a monitor on me for a few days, and when they took it off, the doctor said I'm having tiki episodes likely triggered by stress, and he gave me a small dose of a medication and told me no caffeine for now, rest when I can, water, salt, all that. I came home and poured out every energy drink I'd been sneaking for late night work sprints. It felt like breaking up with a bad friend. The day after I turned in the AirTag, he showed up. I wasn't even at our place. There's cameras there now and my uncle changed the lock, and the order says he can't come within 100 yards of me or my grandma or anywhere we're staying. But he went to my sister's school at pickup and stood on the sidewalk like a statue just outside the gate. My sister saw him first and went white as paper. He didn't say anything to me, didn't even look, just stood there. I don't know if he thought that makes it not a violation. I called 911 with my hands sweating and my daughter strapped to my chest. They came fast. He tried to walk away like he just happened to be walking down that exact street at that exact time. The officer already had the report with the tracking device because he said my name like he knew me. They put him in the car. His mom was parked down the block and when I looked up she was crying in her hands. For a split second I felt bad and then my neck pulsed under my skin and that feeling left. Child services came. I think anyone would be terrified of that knock even if you vacuum daily and your kid eats kale. The woman was young and wearing sneakers and she sat on my grandma's orange floral couch and looked at my baby playing with blocks and at the baby gate and the bruise fading on my throat. She said a concerned report had come in and talk about whiplash because apparently he told them I was unwell and possibly abusive. I had the police case number and the order printed out in a binder like a dork, and I gave it to her. She looked at everything, checked the fridge, asked my sister a few questions in the kitchen. She left an hour later and said the words "we don't have concerns at this time," and I just melted into the doorway after she left like I was made of gum. I got an email that night. An essay, from him. It pinged my phone 4 times like a teenager texting. The subject line was "please read." He wrote that he blacked out, that he's mortified, that he's been under unbelievable stress and I put too much pressure on him, but also he's sorry, but also I'm heartless for involving strangers. It was this weird zigzag of apology and blame and my eyes kept catching on "you made me and you pushed me." He ended it with "I'll never forgive you if you take my daughter away." I didn't respond. I forwarded it to the officer who gave me his card at the station and then I put my phone face down and went and sat on the floor next to my daughter's crib and listened to her breathe until I could feel my hands again. 2 days later, a girl messaged me on Instagram. I don't even know how she found me because my profile is boring and locked, but she sent a long message with her phone number and I ignored it for a few hours because I didn't have capacity for one more thing. But curiosity is a monster. We talked on the phone while my daughter ate puffs in her high chair and I wiped up the same piece of banana 5 times. She dated him when they were 19. She said he choked her in a car after an argument about nothing and she filed a report and dropped it because his mom convinced her he'd lose his scholarship and that it would destroy his life. She cried on the phone and said she thought it was just her. She still had the old case number and a photo of her neck. I sat there with my hand over my mouth like a cliche and felt that weird buzzing validation shame mix that I can't even name. I gave her the DA's email. She said she'd send it. Work called me too. My boss has this stern voice that makes me feel 12. He asked if everything was okay because he got a strange message from a concerned husband implying I was stealing time and using company property to troll the internet. My face went hot and numb at the same time. I told him I had a protective order and a police case and that I'm not stealing anything and if he needs me to route it through HR I will. He got quiet and then he apologized. He said to take a few days. I logged off and stared at a blank wall and then I went and made spaghetti with jarred sauce and called it a victory dinner. I moved more of our stuff out of the apartment. It felt like raiding a museum of someone's bad habits. I found stupid things that shouldn't make me cry but did, like the baby socks that never stayed on her feet and the spatula with the melted edge because he stuck it in the pan that one time. I found something else too. There was a shoebox on the top shelf of his office closet labeled wires. Inside were wires and SD cards and 2 old phones. One of them lit up enough to read the lock screen. Do not ask me why I stuck it in my bag. I don't know. Curiosity? Self-defense? I took it to the police with the air tag report number the next day because it felt like a Pandora box. I don't even know if that was the right thing, but I'm not opening random electronics that belong to a man who tracks women. We had our first quiet night last night. Like actually quiet. My daughter was cranky and teething and I was bracing for that angry slam of a cabinet or the sharp sigh at the end of a day because that's what my body learned to expect. It didn't come. It was just us, and my grandma coughing in the other room, and the radiator making that little ticking noise I've always liked. I made grilled cheese and tomato soup because it was raining and I got to eat sitting down. After I put her to bed, I turned off the kitchen light and for a second my chest squeezed because that's when he'd normally yell about the light, but then nothing happened. I stood there in the dark and my apartment smelled like butter and baby shampoo and I just breathed. I don't know what's going to happen next. His mom called my grandma's landline this morning and left a message about talking like adults and not ruining her son's future. I saved it. We have another date on the calendar for the custody piece and I have a little notebook where I write down every weird ping and drive-by an old memory that pops up when I'm trying to sleep. It sounds silly but it helps. My daughter asked again where dad is and I told her he's taking a long time out to learn to be gentle. She nodded like that made sense. That's where I am. I keep catching myself waiting for the other shoe to drop and then reminding myself the shoes are on my own feet now. I can take them off when I want. I can leave them by the door and walk barefoot to get a glass of water at midnight and no one will yell at me for the sound. That probably sounds stupid, but last night it felt like the biggest thing in the world. Update 3. This morning the mail truck backfired outside and I jumped so hard I spilled oatmeal on my foot. It burned and then I laughed because it was oatmeal and not a fist or a door slam. I wiped it up with a towel that's always slightly damp no matter how long it's been hanging and tried to talk myself down from the stupid adrenaline. My daughter said truck boom in this proud little voice and I kissed her hair and thought, okay, fine, we're okay. We had the custody intake for the supervised visits. It's in this beige building that looks like a dentist office from the 90s, with faded fish stickers on the door and a bowl of stale lollipops that my sister stole 2 of and then gave back because she said they tasted like closet. The woman at the desk had a voice like a cartoon mouse and I wanted to hug her. They had me come early so I could see the room. It's just a square with a couch and a rug and a camera in the corner that blinks red. There was a bin of plastic food, a tiny stroller, a doll with a scribbled on face that looked like it's seen things. The rules are paper clipped to a clipboard, no passing notes, no talking about the case, no whispering. I nodded so much my neck hurt. He showed up late, like he's allergic to clocks. He had that haircut his mom likes where it's too short on the sides and it makes his ears stick out. He didn't look at me. He looked at our daughter like she was a museum exhibit. She tucked her face in my neck and went rigid and I felt guilty for not being a magician who could make this not confusing. The staff did this trade-off thing where they had me sit in a different room with a glass window while he came in. He tried to hand her a stuffed bear and she threw it at the wall with the most accurate arm I've seen on a toddler. I almost laughed and then I wanted to cry. He tried to talk to her about when we're back home, and the staff cut in, gentle but steel, and reminded him of the script. He started to get that tight jaw and I saw it from the side and my stomach clenched out of habit. He peeled the label off his water bottle for 20 minutes. At the end he tried to tuck a folded paper into the diaper bag on the hook, smooth like he thought he was starring in a heist. The staff woman corrected him with the same tone you use on a kid who's about to stick a fork in an outlet and took the note. I saw the corner. It was my name in his tiny hard handwriting. He left without looking up. They told me they'd write a report. I took my daughter to the grocery store and bought strawberries and we ate them in the car with the windows cracked and the radio low and she got juice on her shirt and didn't care. The detective called me about the electronics. He said my name like he'd practiced it and I pictured his desk full of sad little Ziplocs with people's lives in them. He told me one of the SD cards had screenshots of my location sharing toggles and pictures of driveways that weren't ours. The timestamps line up with nights I thought I was going crazy because I kept catching a shadow in the corner of my eye while I took the trash out. There were also text threads to a friend I never met, bragging about keeping tabs so I couldn't spin stories. He asked if our smoke detectors were new because there were photos of the ceiling. My vision tunneled and I sat down on the floor with my back against the fridge so I wouldn't fold in half. He said they got a warrant to go to his mom's house because of the firearm surrender and electronics and I pictured her plastic couch runners and the smell of those plug-in things that make fake Hawaiian breezes. He told me they recovered a locked case with another handgun and a 4-pack of air tags from the hall closet that she said was for luggage. I laughed and it sounded like a goose. He didn't laugh. He said the DA is filing an additional stalking charge and violating the order and something else I can't remember because my brain did a blue screen of death right then. He asked me to keep saving everything. I said okay and then I hung up and went and scrubbed the kitchen sink like it had personally offended me. Financial fun next because why not? My bank called about suspicious activity, and for a second I thought it was just the strawberries and then the woman said a card had been opened in my name with a mailing address I didn't recognize. It was his mom's street but the number was off by 2. I wanted to chew on the phone. The account had a balance from a store where you buy gaming chairs and neon signs shaped like lightning bolts. I could see his stupid office in my head, the light that buzzed. I filed fraud and then I sat in front of a computer with a victim advocate at the family center while my daughter colored on a placemat with that thick broken crayon and we pulled my credit report and I could feel my heartbeat in my ears when the screen loaded. He had put me as an authorized user on 2 cards. One of the purchases was the exact 4-pack of air tags, timestamped a week before he stuck one in my bag. It felt like standing under a light that finally got turned on. We froze everything. I called the detective and gave him the credit report and he made this low sound that wasn't quite a word. I called the bank again and the guy said he was sorry in a way that sounded like he meant it, and my eyes stung for the weirdest reason. I didn't even cry when the order got granted but this guy named Tristan from the fraud department made me want to hug the entire concept of customer service. He violated again because of course he did. He sent an old coworker of mine a voice memo to pass along to me, like the restraining order is a suggestion. He said my full name like it was mud in his mouth and then did that thing where he strings apologies and threats together like beads. I love you, you'll ruin me, you know I don't mean it that way, you're evil. I forwarded it to the officer before my hand stopped shaking. There was a hearing on the violation and I sat in the back because I didn't trust my legs. He came in the same wrinkled dress shirt from the last time and for a second I wanted to iron it even though I will never touch that man's sleeves again. The judge looked tired. He read through the new stuff, the air tag, the school sidewalk, the voice memo. The judge told him he was either reckless or willful and both are bad, and then he remanded him for the weekend for ignoring court orders. His mom made this sound like a tea kettle. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt the way you feel when a fever breaks and you're suddenly cold and sticky and you want to shower. I went home and made eggs for dinner because eggs are fast and cheap and my daughter loves to dip toast in the yolk and that felt like a win. Work is, oddly okay. HR set up this thing where my number is flagged, so if anyone calls claiming to be a spouse, they route it to a mailbox that nobody checks unless I give the okay. My boss put me on projects that don't require 4 Zooms a day, and I cried in the bathroom at work because he said your safety is our priority and meant it. I also signed up for EAP counseling, and the guy on the phone mispronounced my name and I corrected him and he corrected himself, and it felt like having a spine grow 2 inches. We got keys to a little place. It's not fancy. There's a crack in the bedroom ceiling that looks like a river on a map, and the kitchen drawer sticks on the left. But it has 2 windows that make squares of light on the floor at 3 in the afternoon, and you can hear the ice cream truck 2 streets over, and my daughter danced in the echo while my sister spun her like a tiny tornado, and my grandma sat in a folding chair with her sweater even though it was warm. We painted one wall because the landlord said we could only do light neutrals, and my sister chose a color called Misty Oat, and we made fun of the name until we got paint in our hair. I put our spatula with the melted edge in the drawer on purpose because it's ours and it survived, and then I made pasta and ate it sitting down again because that is my new religion. Child Services closed out the initial check with a letter on heavy paper. It says something bureaucratic and boring that means we're not worried right now, and I put it in my binder with the tab that says important, and I wanted to kiss the whole binder like a weirdo. My therapist had me do this thing where you write a letter you won't send, and I wrote 3 sentences that started with you don't get to, and then my pen ran out and I laughed until I hiccuped. I slept 6 hours in a row last night. I woke up because I thought I heard someone say my name, and it was the radiator. I turned over and my daughter's little feet were in my face because she sneaked into my bed at 3 a.m. like a cat, and she smelled like baby shampoo and strawberries, and I didn't care that she drooled on my pillow. His mom left a Tupperware on my grandma's stoop with a note under the lid. It said we need to sit down like family, and then a PS about the sauce being my husband's favorite. The lid was scotch taped shut like I was going to take it and run. I took a photo and texted the advocate, and she said I could toss it, and I did. It made a little sad plop in the trash and I felt nothing. That surprised me. I thought I would feel guilt or nostalgia or something poetic. It was noodles and control at the same time, and I don't eat that anymore. The last thing, and I'll stop because my hands are getting tired. The visitation center sent the first note. It's not an essay, just a paragraph. Child appeared cautious, engaged with blocks. Father attempted to redirect conversation to adult matters. Staff intervened. Child became upset when father raised voice. Father complied after staff reminder. Child soothed with water and book about kittens. There's a checkbox that says recommend continuation with structure. I put it in the binder. I put the binder on the shelf by the door. I put my shoes under it. I stood in my quiet kitchen and switched off the light and waited out of old reflex for the yell that never came. It didn't come. I stood there with my hand on the wall, feeling the cool paint under my fingers, and the only thing I could hear was my own breath and the tiny hum of the fridge and my daughter mumbling in her sleep from the other room, something about a duck. It felt like a small miracle, which is still a miracle, even if it's small. Update 4. My daughter learned the word gentle. She says it like she's whispering a spell, little hand patting the cat magnet on the fridge, gentle, gentle, and I want to put it on a banner over our door. I stuck a post-it on the inside of my front door with her crooked little G on it, and it made me feel like we live in a nice place, even if our couch is still an air mattress that sighs when you sit. The daycare thing nearly took my knees out. I picked her up early because she had a runny nose and wanted me, and Miss T at the front desk had a folder already waiting for me with a tab that said legal in red like it meant stop. They added our code word in big block letters and made me practice saying it twice, and I felt stupid and protected at the same time. The next day, my phone rang from their number during nap time, and I swear my heart stepped right out of my body and into the hallway. He'd shown up to drop off a jacket and asked to see her classroom real quick. Miss T said she got that prickly feeling on the back of her neck and stalled him by pretending the pen was broken while she texted the director, who locked the interior door and called the police. He left before they got there. They had his plate on the camera. I drove to the parking lot anyway because my body said go now, and I sat there with my forehead on the steering wheel, and the director came out and put a hand on my shoulder through the open window and said, "You're doing everything you're supposed to," and my throat hurt like I swallowed a coin. The judge saw it the next morning. Same room, same seal on the wall that makes everyone behave like they're in church. He didn't look at me. I looked at the tiny crack near the fluorescent light and followed it with my eyes like it was a river. The DA spoke quickly, added the daycare approach to the pile, mentioned the air tag and the sidewalk and the voice memo and the wellness check at 1 a.m. that was not a wellness check. It was a roulette wheel of my kid waking and me standing in the doorway in a t-shirt, explaining to 2 apologetic officers that I'm not suicidal, I'm trying to sleep. The judge's mouth did that thin line thing, and he ordered GPS monitoring and curfew and told him if he sneezes outside the line of his conditions he will sit. He actually said sit. The anklet went on that afternoon at pretrial services. I watched his mom whisper shout at the clerk like whispering made her nicer. I went home and heated up tomato soup and cut the grilled cheese into little squares because they cool faster that way, and my daughter made a house for the squares out of cucumber slices. I dipped one in the soup and felt like I swallowed something hot and sweet at the same time. Relief is a weird flavor. The detective called again, that tone like everything he says is wrapped in paper. The old apartment has those smoke detectors wired into the ceiling with dumb little green lights. He asked if I minded meeting them there with the landlord because he didn't want to set off the building alarm by surprise. It felt like walking into a set from a past life. The carpet smelled like our old laundry detergent, which made me angrier than I expected. They took down 2 detectors and unscrewed them at the kitchen counter like they were diffusing a bomb, and when he pointed with his pen at a pinhole tucked in plastic that looked exactly like all the other nothings, I had to sit down. It wasn't live anymore. He said he couldn't tell me everything yet, but the tiny SD tucked under the battery wasn't for beeping. He asked if I wanted to know what, and I didn't. I said, "Do you need me to?" And he said, "Not right now," and then he said the word voyeurism like it's a category on a shelf, and I stared at the smiley face magnet our old neighbor's kid left on the fridge the day we moved out. I signed where they told me to sign. On the way down the stairs, the landlord whispered, "I'm so sorry," like a secret, and I nodded because my mouth didn't know how to make a shape. The visitation center wrote a note that said session ended early. He told her daddy's coming home soon, and she pressed her lips together like a little old lady and said no. He laughed, this weird thin laugh I haven't heard before, and tried to tell the staff he was joking, and they stopped it right there. I watched through the glass. She asked for the book with the kittens and drank water and calmed down. He sat with his knee going a mile a minute. He tried to leave a paper bag for her to take, and the staff opened it in front of me later. It was crayons and a shirt and a folded letter with my name and then a flash drive like this is a spy movie. The staff wrote it up. They keep saying the same phrase, structure helps, and I keep nodding like my head is a bobble on a dashboard. I went to a clinic visit I didn't know was a thing until the advocate told me. They took my blood pressure and put goo on my neck and slid a wand over the places where his hands were, and I watched black and white river maps of my own arteries on a screen. The tech had kind eyes and gel on her scrubs. She asked if I felt lightheaded more in the shower or when I stand fast, and I joked about my heart being dramatic, and then I didn't make a joke because she said it all quietly and matter of fact, like I'm not crazy to be there. The doctor said no dissection, and I didn't know I was holding my shoulders up around my ears until they dropped. She gave me a card for a hotline printed on paper that looks like a business card and told me to keep it somewhere dumb like behind my phone case so I won't throw it away. I did it right there in the hallway. I told my therapist and she closed her eyes for a second like someone said grace. There was a knock on my grandma's door at dinner and my sister yelled "Don't open" before I could stand because we're jumpy. It was 2 men in short sleeves with clipboards who said they were from the cable company, and my grandmother almost melted because she loves cable men, but their lanyards were wrong. Weird fonts. They said they needed access to the basement. I said no and shut the door and called the non-emergency number, and it turned into a little parade on the sidewalk with our neighbor Mr. Frank and his smoke, and the uniforms told me their badges were fake. I don't know if that was him or just the universe being a jerk. I wrote it in the notebook anyway. My hand shook and then it didn't. He filed an emergency something for custody, said I'm alienating, which is funny if you think refusing to let a toddler pick glass out of her hair is alien behavior. My lawyer filed a response with all the boring serious words that are really just our nights printed out. The judge denied it without a hearing at this time, and I ate a piece of toast standing up with butter that ran down my wrist like I was celebrating something fancy. He also missed a visit because of the GPS thing. Apparently his curfew includes the time slot because he cut it too close, and the center marked no show and suggested he learn the clock. I put that paper behind the tab labeled visits in the binder, and I put the binder back on the shelf like putting a book away, not a grenade. Work gave me a little plant. It's one of those pothos that refuses to die, and it came with a handwritten note in my boss's blocky handwriting that said "for your new place." I put it on the sill and my daughter stroked a leaf with one finger and said gentle, and I almost cried over a plant because I feel like an idiot and a world champ in the same hour daily. HR rolled out some safety training and asked me if I'd be okay giving them a sentence to include about restraining orders at work, and I wrote one and then deleted an adjective because it sounded too dramatic. They gave me a parking spot closer to the door with my name misspelled on a piece of printer paper in a plastic sleeve, and I kept it because it's ridiculous and sweet. There was a night where I burned chicken and the smoke detector went off and my body had that split-second crush of panic, and then I laughed because this one is dumb and only beeps, and I opened a window and waved a towel like a person beating a ghost. My daughter covered her ears and yelled "duck" loud. And I showed her the button to make it stop and she pushed it and made a face like she saved the city. We ate cereal instead. She fell asleep on my chest watching a cartoon with a dog that says "oh no" a lot, and I lay there with her sweat damp on my shirt and my grandma coughing softly in the other room and the hallway light making a little triangle on the floor, and for the first time in I don't know how long, my mind didn't sprint ahead to the worst case patch of grass. It just sat. It sat in the room with the tick of the radiator and the plant leaf lifting because the windows cracked and the sound of somebody's distant laugh out on the sidewalk. I turned the kitchen light off and nobody yelled, and the silence didn't feel like a held breath. It felt like a room being a room. That shouldn't feel wild. It does.